welcome back to another tutorial, and in this one we are basically going to be building an Airbnb clone. I know that a lot of us are going to be asking what happened to the Discord clone, but I lost all the files. I ran into a bunch of things with my laptop and everything, so I lost all the files that I worked on and everything. And I mean, I worked on this project, I got bored and everything, so I mean, I don't think I can go back right now, at least right now, right? So I had to come up with something else to create the fun and energy. I mean, basically that should be the reason why I have not released any video in a while. But yeah, let's enjoy this tutorial. So we're going to be building an Airbnb clone, and first of all, what we want to start doing is I want to quickly create a new folder here. So here we'll create a new folder. Okay, this is a new folder. I think we can delete this one and then take this one. Then over here we can say Airbnb clone. Okay, so Airbnb clone. We save that. It says already contains does it? Do we? Okay, I guess we need to change the name. So Airbnb video or tutorial. Right, Airbnb tutorial. Then we save that. Then all we have to do is drag and drop this here. Right? We drag and drop this. You can see that we have this one on the side. Let me quickly make this come to the side real quick. Okay, so now that we have our project here on one side, let me open up the terminal real quick. Then we have it here. So what we want to do is we want to first of all create our React application, right? So we'll say npm create space vit at latest. Then we do this just so it basically generates our React application inside our root. But I mean, we could do that. I mean, since at the end of the day, since we'll be having backend to also work with, I think the best thing to do is at least create like a client folder or something. So I could easily say client, or I could just say Airbnb, right? So Airbnb, then we enter. Okay, then once we enter, it should ask us to select one. We select React, and then we want to enable TypeScript, right? Now we have to cd into our Airbnb like it's saying. So cd space, then you press the first 2 or 3 letters, then hit tab so that auto completes for you. Hit enter. Now you have to do your npm install. You can also do npm I. It installs everything for you as you need. Then I mean, after this is done installing, we are just going to configure certain things. That is, we can come here and then change the name that is here, which is the title. The title here, we can make this title Airbnb. We can set the title to Airbnb. Should we make it clone? Okay, let's keep it like that. Then over here we can set the styling, and then over here this is where we are going to specify our font family, right? So we are going to be using a Nonito font family. I'm going to come here, but basically what I did was I came to search Nonito Google font, and then the first link, it gave me the first link, right? Give me the first link, and yes, I basically clicked on get fonts, and then I said I want to get embedded code, and I went down, I copied this, and I came to paste it right around here, right? So we have basically every type of preference that we want of our font, we can get it inside through this importation, right? Now over here we can come here and basically just copy this into here. But I feel like honestly there's no need to specify this, no need to specify this. We can just leave it at this section. Even I could say this one as well, but when I'm seeing optical sizing sounds good to me. So yeah, we've been able to set up the fonts. Now we need to be able to add Tailwind. So in order for us to be able to do that, what you can do is in your browser you can say something like Tailwind setup. Then you see the first link, you just enter. Yeah, and then you can see using React, you just follow the steps. I already have the link open here, so there's no need. I would quickly come here. We've already set up our projects, no need to do that again. So over here I can just copy this. Let me reduce the size of this so we have more space to work with, and then I'll just paste this. Okay, so hit enter. It starts installing. While it's installing, we can work on the other things, which is here. Okay, so over here I can copy this content here and then come. Okay, so I guess we need to be able to create a Tailwind config file, right? So I'm quickly going to skip the video and wait for it to install. Okay, so as you can see, after I run the first command for it to install TailwindCSS post CSS and auto prefixer, it also pasted the second command, that is npx tailwindcss init-p, and that is supposed to create tailwind.config.js, which is here and here in the post config, right? Now that we have both of these all set up, we want to come here to the content side. So over here we copy this, and then inside our Tailwind config, as you can see, just paste it here, save, then you come here again, and then you copy this, then we go to our index.css file, delete this, paste it, and then then we can now start our projects. But before we do anything, let us clean up the projects. I forgot to do that. I'm going to app.css. I'm cleaning up everything that is there. Okay, main.tsx, I don't have anything to clean up actually. I'm just going to go to app.tsx and just clean up this, and also clean this up as well. Then what I could actually do is, okay, so I can let's just clean it manually. So then here, over here, I could just pass in like a quick div or something. Then I can say something like welcome Airbnb, right? Okay, now that we have this all working, let us launch our project. So npm run dev, wait for it to launch. Okay, it says missing script. Okay, yeah, there's a mistake. I was supposed to cd into Airbnb. Sorry, I'm supposed to cd into Airbnb. So yeah, I have to rerun this whole thing. Oh no. So let me delete this and delete this as well. Now I have to cd into Airbnb, and then now rerun that setup that I ran before, which is this one. So these packages, I'm just going to reinstall them. Then I'll select paste, right? Then once it is done, we have to just copy this part and paste it inside the place where we pasted it in before. Then okay, So inside here you can see npm run dev. Okay, so npm run dev should help us preview our application inside our browser. Okay, we're going to have to wait a little bit. So I'm going to cut the video from here. Once everything is all set up and done, we'll get back. Okay, there's no need to cut it anymore. Okay, so I'll just press control and click on it, and then you can see welcome Airbnb. What we can do is we can basically set a class name. And then inside the class name you can see font, bold, text XL or 2XL, and then we can see text. Text rows 500. Alright, then all we have to do is I forgot. We will not see the changes yet until we fully set up everything. So yes, Tailwind config has been set up. I'll just go here and then paste the content thing that we copied from here. If you remember the content, this part, right? Okay, so that has been set up nicely. Okay, we've already done this part. So let us just quickly restart. I think I'll have to clean this up and then start again. So run dev. Okay, it's opening our Airbnb app for us. Okay, now when we go into our app.tsx, you can see the changes have been made successfully. Now for the last thing, inside our index.css, in order for us to be able to handle the styles a lot more easier, let us add these things. So we have HTML, the body, and roots. And then inside, we want to set the height to be 100%. Thank you. And then, yes, now we should be able to work with items and components inside our application seamlessly. Alright, let's move on to the navigation UI. Alright, so now we want to work on the navbar, right? Now, in order for us to be able to work on the navbar, we need to create the navbar component. So let's go ahead and create the components folder. So components inside here, and then we have navbar UI. Just navbar. Okay, we can't create the file right now. We need to basically let me create the folder instead. So navbar, we want to have the navbar. Then inside here we have navbar.tsx, right? So inside the navbar.tsx, you can see that it is found inside the navbar folder we have here, right? Now inside we're going to say rfce, and then let's quickly delete this part, cut it off, and then over here inside the app.tsx, we can quickly import it. So I'm basically going to bring in my div, import it, and then we pass in with the navbar that we imported. They are going to import. Okay. Alright. So now that we have the navbar showing here, nice and clean, now we want to work on the items that are supposed to be found inside the navbar. Okay. So in order for us to be able to do that, let us go inside the navbar. Okay. Inside the navbar here, we want to add a few class names, right? So now, what is the first class name that we want to add? Class name. Okay. So now we want to make sure that the navbar is fixed. Then we want to give it a full width, right, or a width of 100%. However, then we want to give it a BG height actually, BG height. Then we give it a z index of 10, or just z of 10, right? And then we make sure that it is a shadow sn. Okay, so a shadow is small. It looks like it. Okay, let me quickly bring out the code more. So you can see fixed full width BG white, and then a Z10 with the shadow, with a small shadow, right? Now inside this, we want to create another div here. We want to create another div in here. Then we want to pass in another class name, right? So inside this div, we say class name. Then inside this class name, we want to pass in the padding y of 4, right? Then we give it a border of 1 pixel with a border button of 1 pixel. So border button of 1 pixel. Do 1 pixel. Then we now come and create a new component here, which is going to be our container component. And with this container components, that's what we are going to be using in most of our other files, right? They're going to help us arrange our files in the same kind of way. So inside here, we want to come outside here inside the component folder and create a new file called container, right? So we say container.tsx, okay? And inside the container.tsx, we will pass in our RAFCE to create it down, and then let's quickly delete this. And then inside here, we want to create a quick interface actually. So interface container props, right? Container props. Then inside this, we want to see that the container is going to take a children, right? So children. Then these children are going to be React node. We are going to import React node from React. Some people can choose to write React.node or React node. So if you're importing React node from React, you can import it as a module like this. But if you have something like React, only React here, or if you have just React like this, so here is going to be this, where you see the situation where people will say React.node, right? I mean, I like the other one. I'm keeping the other one actually. So and I like it like this, right? So now that we have this, we want to bring this colon, and then we make sure that it knows that it is a functional component which is using the interface that we provided to, which is what the container props. Then we pass in the object, the container prop object, which is the children. We pass in the children here, and then over here we can now do what? We can now make sure that the children is in between the two divs. So children, right? Then we pass in a few class names on inside this div, right? So here, class name. Then what class name? We want to say set the max width to. We're going to set the max width to 2520 pixels. 2520 pixels. Then we say that we want the MX auto. Alright. Then we want, that is the margin horizontal. I want it to be set to auto. Then we have Excel, that is extra large screens. We want to make sure that that has a padding horizontal, which is a PX, and we want to give that 28 actually. And then let's make that 20. Let's make that 20 instead. So let's make that 20. Then we pass in the MD. Then let's make it okay. So you can see that the MD has whenever it's on a medium size screen, it has what? A padding horizontal of 10 pixels. And then for a small screen, we want to pass on a horizontal padding of 2. And then for the smaller screen that is available, we want to pass in the horizontal padding of 4. Alright, now this is awesome. We have our children inside, nice and clean. We can now use them in our nav bar. So over here, I'm quickly going to import the container, and then since it needs children, we would now use them as we please. Okay, so inside this one, we want to pass in another div here. We want to pass in another div, and basically the first class name of that div is going to be flex, right? So So I'll just bring my emit. I'll just use my emit tricks here and bring in the flex div, and then we just pass in the rest of the class names, which is flex row. We have flex row, then item center, then we have justify between, justify between. So yeah, inside this justify between, then we give it a gap of 3. Give it a gap of 3, and then on medium-sized screens, we want to make sure that the gap is 0. Okay. Now that we understand how this has been able to occur, we want to now pass in a few things. Now you can see that if we stretch it out here and we write something, you see that it's here. So what we can put here is basically the logo, right? That can be the first thing that we put there. So in order for us to be able to create the logo, let's first of all come into the navbar folder here and then create the logo.tsx nicely. And we see REFCE logo, and then over here we are going to set it to be an image. So we're going to set the image, right? Then inside the image we're going to have to import an image actually. So for the image, I think I can check the downloads. You can get the image from going to the GitHub repository that I'm going to put through the description, and then basically just transfer them, right? So I think we can place the image inside the public or the assets. But I want to put it in the assets actually. I should put them in the assets. I mean, depending on wherever you put them, you should still be able to use it. 1 second, please. Alright, so now that I think we can go to the downloads. So we're in the downloads now. I think all I have to do is take this one, this particular, oh no, mistake. Yeah, so I'm just going to drag and drop this into, I'm going to have to create a separate folder and name that images. So the images folder, then I'm going to drag and drop the images here. Then I'll just delete this one. Then this one I'm just going to rename it to Airbnb. Airbnb.png. Then, or I could, name it logo so that we can easily call it. Then over here, okay, I mean along the line, I'll keep importing the images so you can see them. Right, so now that we have the logo image in here, we want to import it at the top, right? So we want to import the logo from the assets, right? So inside the assets, then we have images, then inside the image we have the logo. This is awesome. Okay, so now that we have this, what we want to do is we want to pass the logo inside. So pass in the logo, and you should see, okay, it's not appearing yet because we have not shown it inside our navbar. So here we are going to import the logo basically. Then we close the component since it's okay, so it's here, right? We have the logo here, nice and big. So we basically need to be able to style it so that it fits into the corner it deserves. Okay, so now inside the logo, we want to give it an alternative text of logo. Now we want to pass in a few class names. Now what is the class name? We are going to give it hidden, and then we are going to say that when we are on a medium screen, we want to give it block, right? That is when the screen is on a medium, we want to show it, and then we want to give it a cursor pointer. Okay, this is awesome. And then the next thing we want to work on is give it a specific height and width, because as you can see, it's way too big. So I'm going to pass in the width, and that is also going to be 100. Okay, so you can see that it is all fitted here, nice and clean. Now we need to go and then add our next component, which is the search component. So for the search component, we will come here, right below here, and then we can just create this search basically, and then come here. So inside our nav bar here, we can actually add our search. So we can say search.csx, right? Then inside our search.csx, we can say RAFCE search, okay? And then we just have to import this, and then we should be ready to go. Okay, so we have our search components here. It's showing right here. We are quickly going to pass in create and style it in a certain type of way so that it will fit into our project the way we want it. Let us first of all delete this and delete that. Then we'll come into the first div here and then pass in a few class names, right? So inside we're going to pass in this class name. We are going to say that this first div should take a border of 1 pixel, but you don't need to specify, just say border, and it automatically adds the 1 pixel. Then we give it a full width, and then we pass in. We see that when it's on medium screens, we want to set the width to be all 2. Okay, so now that we've been able to set that up, we would go and say that we want the padding Y to be 20, which is the vertical padding, right? Or padding vertical if you're using React Native. Then we have rounded full, right? That's because of how we want the border radius to look like. Okay, so now that we have the rounded full, what we want to do is we want to add a shadow. Okay, it looks like our code seems to be entering inside, so let's pass in the shadow. So the shadow, we are going to pass in shadow SM, and then we are going to pass in a hover effect. Now when we hover over it, we want to give it a shadow as well. When we hover, we want to give it a shadow. I want to pass in the hover again so I can use the snippet to type faster. So hover, then we pass in the shadow MD. Okay, then we can give it a transition, right, and then set the cursor pointer. Okay, right. Now that we have this all working like how we expect it to be, as you can see, it's here. You can hover over it and everything. What we want to do is we want to add a few divs inside and then specify certain things inside these little divs. All right. So what are the first things that we want to add? So I'm going to create another div, and then the first class name is basically going to be flex. So I'm just going to add it already. Then after flex, I'll specify. I'll say flex row. Then I'll give it an item center. And then a justify between. Okay, so now that has been worked out, I want to come inside this particular one, and then I want to pass in another div. Now for this particular div, the first class name is going to be a text SM, so I'm basically going to pass in that text SM inside. Then I would say something like anywhere. So I'll say anywhere. Then inside this anywhere, what I'm going to do is I'm going to style it, right? So here I'm going to say that the font is going to be semi-bold, right? So semi-bold, and then we make sure that we give it a horizontal padding of 4, right? We can see that working out how we expect it to. Okay, but I don't know, there's something about this one that seems to be a little big in my eyes. I don't know. Let us expand this. Okay. Okay, well, it just seems a little big in my eyes, but okay. I think the padding Y has to be just 2 because it just seems a little big. Let me refresh this. Right. It now makes sense because I don't know, it looked a little big. Alright, so we fixed it. Let's get to work. Okay, so now that we have the anywhere set up like how we expect it to be set up, we want to come under the anywhere and then add another div. But this div its first class is going to be hidden, right? That means when we are on small devices, we want it to be hidden, and then we write any week. Okay, so inside the second div we have any week. We are going to pass in a few class names into the any week, and inside that we're going to say that on small screens we want it to show, right? So on the smallest screens we want it to be hidden, but on a specific small screen size we want it to be we want it to show. That's why I'm giving it a block display. Then we say that the text, we want the text to also be small. Then we pass in a font. We pass in a font of semi-bold or semi-bold, basically. And then inside we say we want PS6, that is horizontal padding of 6, and we give it a border. We give it a border X, right, or horizontal border. I think border X. Yeah, border X. Some like horizontal border, but it's more of, you know, you would see it once I do it. Okay, so it's here 1 pixel, right? Then we now pass in. What do we now pass in? We now pass in the. Okay, let me make sure that you see the horizontal border that I'm talking about. So this is what I'm talking about, right? Let me reduce the size of this, and then so this one we're going to say flex 1, okay, and then we say we want the text to fit the center of whatever it's containing. Now you can see anywhere, any week over here, right, working as it should be. All right, this is awesome. We can basically now move on to the next div. So this next div is basically going to come after this one, and the first class name for that is going to be text.sm. So we're just going to set that to text.sm. Looks like your code editor is trying to be a little slow. So okay, so okay, I don't know why it's being slow, but let's just work, right? So we have this div. Let's close this div up ourselves. Once I'm sure it should be able to get fixed as soon as possible. Divs, yeah. Okay, so inside here, alright, so inside here, what we want to quickly do is we want to pass in a few class names, right? And then I said that the first class name here is that we want to make sure okay, snippets, we're going to make this faster, but yeah, it's here. Then we say that we want the text to be SM, right? Then we want to say that the PL, we want to pass it to 6, and then we want to say PR, so padding left, padding right. Then we set the text gray to be 600, basically, and then we give it a flex and a flex row. Give it a flex and a flex row, and then with the item center. Okay, let me check. Okay, I feel like it should work okay, but if it's not, I guess we just have to keep building. Okay, so now that we have been able to, so it's even, so we are just left to add one more thing, which is the gap, right? So we have the gap here. Then inside, what we can do is we can add a div here. Okay, since it's not going to be created for us for now, I don't know, the PC is being slow. I guess we have to create our own. Then inside this div, we would pass in a few class names. So I'll take class name. Then inside this class name, I'll set it to be hidden on very, very small devices, the least small device. Then on a specific size of a small device, I'll show it. And then once it is done showing, then we want to pass in the add guests text. Alright. Then after adding these guests, we want to come down here and then create another div here, and then inside this div we want to pass in a few things, right? Now inside this div, this is where we are basically going to have to be showing this is where we are going to be showing our search icon, right? But in order for us to be able to do that, we need to be able to install React icons so that we can use the icons in the React icons library. What we can do is, if you're trying to use icons in the React icons library and you checked out our previous project, you realize that we went to React icons. I think they have like so React icons, and then you can set through the library. As you can see, they have a new design that you can check out. That is awesome. Looks good. So yeah, you can basically search for anything. We wanted to use by search actually. Yeah, so it's going to show, and you should be able to use it, right? By search. Very simple and quick. So now that we have this, we can just import the by search icon. Let's quickly import that. Alright, so import by search. Import by search from, then I'll import it from where? I'll import it from React icons /by. I still don't know why my PC is this slow, but no, we gotta do what we gotta do. So by search, then it's going to have to show for us to be able to use it. But since we've not installed it, we need to install React icons. Okay. So I'm going to pause the video over here while the React icons is being installed. When it's done installing, then we continue. Alright, so React icons is done installing, the package is done installing. As you can see, as we imported it as shown here, we just have to change a few things by adding size. Then we need to add size to this and make the size 18. And then over here for the div here, we quickly have to add a few class names. Yeah, so we're going to give it a padding of 2, and then we say that the background is going to be rows, right? And the rows is going to be 500. And then we give our space, then we give the rounded full because we want it to be a circle shaped div, right? Then we say that we want the text to be what? White, right? Then it should be set out nicely for us. This is awesome, and we have made significant progress here. Okay, so now that we are done with the search component, we want to move to the next component that we need here, and that is going to be the user menu. So that is basically the point where we're going to be accessing the user login profile, and so you see all these little things, right? Now, so over here we can quickly write user menu, right, so that you know that it's there and that component is missing, right? So in order for us to be able to have that user menu, let us go into our navbar folder and create a user menu over there. So that is going to be user menu.tsx. Alright, user menu.tsx, then we say RAFCE user menu, and then we can just clean this and clean this basically. Right, now that we've been able to clean out the user menu that is here, we can now start adding the elements we need. Okay, so first of all, we need to start by doing a few things, right? By going back here and then importing it, right? So let's import the user menu nicely. It has been imported. You can see user menu over here. Okay, now inside this user menu component, let's start making our changes, right? So for the first div, you see our main goal is when we click on the user menu, it opens up that drop down, right? So here we are going to set the first main div to be a class name or position relative, right? I'm going to give a position relative, and then now that it has that, we want to come inside and create another div. Okay, and then that div, so let's just create a div. Right now we want to keep in mind that this div would have an onClick function, right? An onClick. So but we can set out just an empty onClick here, right? And then add it out later. But we need to add a class name to this div. We need to be able to add a class name to this div. So we can say we can basically say your home or something, or like Airbnb or something. Airbnb your home, something like that, right? I don't know, but we can put something like that there, and then inside here we can pass in the first class name, which is hidden. Then we can say that, even though we want it to disappear when it's on the smallest device, we want to show it when it's on the medium-sized device. And then in order for us to show it, let's not forget block. Then we say that the text is what? SM. Then we say font. We want the font to be semi-bold. So semi-bold, basically. And then we want to set the PY to be 3. Then we say the PX should be 4. Then we say it should be rounded full, right? Then we give it a hover, and then BG neutral 100. Want to give it a BG neutral 100. Then we give it a transition. Then we give it a cursor pointer. Right. Okay. Now that we have this, you can see that as we hover on top, it has this effect going on top of it, and this is awesome. So now that we have this all working, what we want to do is we want to add in our next div, which should be right below this one. So inside this div as well, we want to have an onClick. So for this onClick, we would make it empty for now as this one. Make it empty like this one, and then we pass in our class name, right? So inside here, what class names do we want to pass? We want to first of all see that the padding should be 4, right? Now if the padding is 4 on the smaller screen, so we want to set the padding, vertical padding, right? The padding Y, which is the vertical padding, we want to set that to be 1 on medium-sized screens. And then we also want to make sure that border is 1 pixel. Then we can see that we want to color the border neutral. We want to say border neutral, and I want to set that to 200. So border neutral should be 200. Border neutral should be 200. I want to be able to, okay, let us slide. So border neutral should be 200 here, right? So now that the border neutral is 200, what else do we want to do? We want to give it a flex and a flex row. Okay, then we want to say that the item should be center, right? Okay, let's slide through so that you see what is going on as we move. Then we give it a gap 3. Then we'll give it a rounded full, and then we give it a hover shadow MD. Okay, this is awesome. Then we give it a transition. Okay, this is awesome as well. Then inside here, you can pass in an AI outline. Okay, so we see AI outline, and that is basically going to be a React icon that we would have to import. So AI outline menu. So that is basically going to be our hamburger menu. Then let's import our AI outline menu. So we are going to do that by then coming up here and then importing it as a module. So AI outline menu. Then we are going to import it from React icons /AI, right? Okay, so now that we've been able to import this, let's refresh. Okay, it still says, oh yeah, this has to be small I. So I'm going to copy this and paste it here. Okay, so it should work now. Okay, so as you can see, this is it. It works as we expect it to work. Okay, now that we have this working, what we want to do is right under here, we want to add another div right here, right? Then inside this div, we want to add our avatar component. Okay, so but let's give it a class name. So we're going to say that on the smaller screens, we want to hide this div, right? But whenever we get to the medium screens, we want to show it, right? So block. Okay, then inside we can create our avatar. Okay, so inside the avatar here, since we are going to be using it in other components, what we can do is we can just create avatar.tsx inside the components, not the navbar, inside the components, avatar.tsx. Then we say RAFCE creates the avatar for us. Delete this. Then we can now import this avatar real quick. Okay. All right. Okay, so inside this avatar here, what we really want to do is over here, we want to pass in an image, right? We want to use an image. So inside here, we can import our avatar, right? We can quickly import our avatar for us to use. So that should be import no user from, or no avatar. We can say import no avatar. So it makes more sense. From where? From the assets folder, assets/images /what? No avatar. But for us to be able to use it, we need to go to the downloads. Like I showed you before when we were starting the video, where you can get the images for you to use in your project. Go to my GitHub repository that I'm going to put inside the description, and then yeah, you can check the assets and then yes, use it. Right, so over here we have, so I'm just going to say avatar.png basically. Then over here I would say avatar.png, and then we just have to use that here. So new avatar. No avatar. Okay, so it is here. You can see that it's big, very big over here, right? So what we can do is we can basically write avatar as the alternative text, and then we can add a class name of rounded full, right? Rounded full. Then after rounded full, we can say that what we want to set the height. To 30, and then we set the width to 30 as well. Okay, all right. So now that we are done with that, what we can do is I think for this part we're supposed to pass in 2, yeah, then it gives like that space that we need. Now that we've been able to pass that, what we need to do is, you see how this one has been like, you see how they are arranged. We need to be able to wrap them around the div. So we create the div here, and I'll cut this div, and I'll come and paste it right around here. right? Wrap them around this div, and then over here we give it a class name. Then inside this class name, we're going to say it's going to be flex row. Then we say the item should be in the center, right? And then we pass in the gap 3. Okay, so now that we've been able to pass in the gap and everything and wrap it well, now what we want to do right now is we want to make sure that whenever we click on this, right, it shows that menu, right, that drop down where we can log in, log out, basically access the user menu, right? Now, in order for us to be able to do that, we need to come here and create a state and say, so we want to say is open, and then set is open, right? Set is open, and then we give that a use state, right? We can give that a use state, and then we can set it to boolean, and we can say that this is going to be what? False at the beginning, right? It's going to be set to false at the beginning. We can, I think for this particular one, you can decide to set the type or not set the type. Doesn't really matter like that. So let's just take it off. Doesn't really matter like that. So yeah, we have set is open, set is open and set is open. We can set that to false, right? Then under here we can create a toggle menu function. Okay, then inside this toggle menu function, we want to do a few things. We want to set is open, right? We want to set is open to its previous state. So we could pass in a previous state, and then so we can say previous as the parameter, and then what is not previous, right? So this is basically how we do it. We save it up and it gets arranged nicely, right? Now, maybe we want to verify. How do we verify? I would console log and now say it's open, right? So now that we have this toggle menu here, what we want to do is, you see over here, we can just pass in the toggle menu. So the toggle menu, then I can Ctrl+Shift+I inside the browser. It brings out the console. Let's quickly refresh this. Okay, then all we have to do is, you see, true, false, true, false, true, false, true, false. You can see it switch out there like that, and that is awesome. Okay, let me quickly close this so that we can have everything here again. Then we can continue doing what we want to do. So now that we've been able to set up this quick functionality here, let me cut this out. What we want to do is we want to create a condition right at the edge over here. So after the last button, in between the last button and the last div, right, we want to create this curly braces here, and then we want to say if it's open exists, right, if it's true, if its open state is true, we want to render the following, right? We want to render the following, which is obviously the menu, right? So what do we want to render inside the menu? First of all, we are going to pass in the first div, and then this div is going to have a class name, right? So what class name is that? We're going to pass in the class name of absolute. That is the position absolute, which is going to be relative to the first one that we had at the top over here. Okay, so here it is. So position absolute. Then inside here we have what? Rounded XL, right? Then we have our shadow MD. Then we have the width, and then the width is going to be 40 viewport height. So that is what 40 viewport width actually. So we set that 40 viewport width, and then we can go. I think I have to slide through. Why don't we push the class name to the next line, right, like this, so that we can easily navigate through and see. So over here, we want to set the width on the medium screen. We want to see that the width, whenever it's on the medium screen, is what? 3/4. Okay, and then we want to see that we want to give it a BG height. We want to give it a BG height, and then overflow heading. Okay, so then we say write 0, write 0. Why is it writing type? Write 0. Alright, that's awesome. Then right after giving the write 0, we want to give it a top of 12. Okay, then we say that the text should be small. Okay, now that we've been able to set this up, we want to come inside this div, the div that we have here. We want to get inside it. Let me quickly expand this so you see what is going on. So we want to come inside here, and then we create another div here, and then inside this other div is going to have a few class names basically. What is the class name that is going to have? We are going to give it a flex or display flex, and then we are going to say flex code. Then I would say cursor pointer, and then inside here we are going to put in some empty fragments so that we can display the menu items. So here we are going to have to create a new component called menu item, right? So menu item, you can create that separately, menu item. Then we come here, right, inside the menu item, right? We're usually going to come inside the menu item over here. So navbar, we can create menu item inside the nav. So menu item.tsx. Okay, so RAFCE, and we should get the menu item. Let us delete this, delete that. So over here, let's import menu item. Okay, so you realize that it's here that the menu item shows basically. So let's quickly style the menu item. Alright, so inside this menu item here that we want to work with, what we want to first of all do is we are going to be passing in certain props, right? So if we want to have like an on-click prop here, then we want to also have a label prop here, right? But we can't just use them straightforward like that. So we need to create an interface, as we all know in TypeScript. Then we say the menu props, menu item props, okay. Then we have an on-click. Oh, so we see the label string, and then over here passing the FC. Oh no, FC. Then we see menu item props. Okay. Now that we've been able to set these interfaces, and then we set them to the menu item props over here, what we want to do is we want to now come inside here and then start creating our elements. Okay, so now inside this we want to have our first div, and then inside this div we want to add a class name, right? So we want to add a class name, and then we also want to add an on-click too as well. Let's add an on-click, and inside this on-click we just pass in this, right? So over here we say px4 and then py3, right? Then we now pass on the hover effect. Then when we hover over it, we want to make sure that I want to see the snippet so it becomes fast. Then we set the BG neutral to be 100, right? BG neutral is 100, and then we now say it's going to be a transition, right? Transition. Then we say we want the font to be semi bold. Then inside here we pass in the label. We pass in the label prop. Okay, right, label prop. So now that we've been able to set this one up as quickly as possible, I want to come here. You can see that there's an error here. That's because we're not using the props. Okay, so inside this on click, we can quickly just add an empty function for that, and then for the label we just pass in login, and then so you can see login, right? And then we can do the same for sign up, basically. So sign up. Okay, so now that we've been able to set this up really nicely and really quickly for it, I think we can now move on to working on the new UI. Okay, so basically this is the navigation. If we maximize, we can see that this is it. And then if we use a device, it's actually a plugin. I'm not sponsored by this plugin, but it was actually recommended to me by a friend. What's the name? Let me check the extensions. I think Mobile Simulator Responsive. Yeah, I was recommended. Okay, responsive testing tool was recommended to me by my friend, so you can check that out. I'm not sponsored by them, by the way. And yeah, so yeah, you can basically check it out on like different screens. Right, so yeah, this login, sign up, and when we expand the screens, so right, you can see that it's coming out nicely. You can also ignore this and also use our normal responsiveness tool here. Okay, so so you can see it's responding, right? Okay, this is awesome. What we've been able to come up with. So if I want to quickly go over the code, I would say that first of all, we came to the app.tsx to set up our navbar, and inside the navbar that we set up, we decided to create a container to contain these things, right, that we have inside. And we created the logo separately, we created the search separately, and then we created the user menu separately, but there are extra components that come with them, which is the logo and the menu item. All right, so yes, let's move to the next thing. So we want to move on to the authentication UI, and for the authentication UI, we're basically, since it's going to be handling of forms and all these other things, we're basically going to be needing a few things. Now, what is the first thing that we are going to need? That is going to be the register model, or the modal, and then a toolstar, just so we can display notifications and stuff like that in our applications. In our previous videos, we were using React Toastify, but in this one, we'd use React Hot Toast. So let's quickly go into the terminal and install React Hot Toast. Okay, and also we'll be using Zustand. So let's install Zustand too as well. Okay, I don't think we can install them inside this directory. So let me quickly copy this and then cancel this section of the terminal. I want to cancel this section of the terminal. Let me create a new one. Okay, and then I'll cd into Airbnb, and yeah, I can paste it. I'll paste it now. It hasn't been pasted. PC seems a bit slow. Okay, it hasn't. So I'll say npm I react hot toast and Zustand. Okay, so we install both of these packages, and then over here, this is where we are going to basically use our toaster, and we are going to use it right on top of our component. And then over here, this is where we are going to use our register modal, right? Our register modal in general. Okay, so basically what we want to understand, or what we want to know how to work with things, right? So over here we want to import the toaster. Okay, it looks like it's not going to import for us, so I guess we have to import it ourselves. So import the toaster from React Hot Toast. Alright, React Hot Toast, it's here. Now over here, let me quickly close these and collapse this one, and then over here we would come to modals. We will create a new folder and name it modals, right? Now inside this folder, okay, let me rename it and make it a capital so that we keep in the consistencies. So over here I would name the first file modal.tsx, right? Modal.tsx in general. Okay, so inside this modal.tsx, we want to use refce to be able to display the modal, right? Basically, well, we can't see the modal straightforward, so we can just bring that one here. Let's bring the modal here, right? And then let's comment this one out for the meantime. So let's quickly separate the screens. And then over here you can see that okay, I'm going to give more screen. Okay, so you can see that we have the modal on top here, right? So we want to quickly work on the modal. Okay, so in order for us to be able to do that, we need to first of all start by creating our interface. So we want to say modal props. Then inside our modal props, we want to pass in is open, and that is going to be an optional prop. So, and we are going to set that to Boolean. Now, in the actual projects that I was building, I set it to Boolean and everything, but it looks like we were still getting some errors. It wasn't sure if the value that was going to be passed in was going to be undefined or Boolean. So I just said okay, or any, right, so that we can avoid that error. And then okay, now that we've been able to set that up, oh come on, I want to, yeah, alright, good. Now over here we will now pass in the onClose. That is going to be, as for that one, is going to be a required prop, so we don't pass the question mark onto it. Then we say on submit. On submit is basically going to, okay, so here, over here, right? On submit here, and then we can pass in the title. We can pass in the title. The title basically has to be optional, and then we pass in the string type, and then we see that the body obviously is also going to be optional, and then we pass in string obviously, and then when it comes to the foot, for the title being a string, for the body we are going to have to pass in React element. Sorry about that mistake. Right, then for the footer, which is going to be the same thing, React element here, right? Okay, now that we've been able to set that up, let's go to the action label, right? Action label, and then that is basically going to be an optional, and then that is going to be set to a string. Then we have the disabled prop. It's also going to be optional. Then we pass Boolean to it. Then we can go to the secondary secondary action that is going to be a function. So that is void. Alright, so once that is there, I'm going to say secondary action label. Secondary action label, that is going to be an optional function, and then we pass string. Okay, since it's a label basically. Alright, now that we've been able to set this up, right, what first of all we want to do is we want to make sure that our model component here recognizes it. So we can call React and say this is a functional component that uses the interface that we are taking from the modal props, right? Now that we have this, you can just double click on this to select, hold Alt, double click on another, hold Alt, while still holding Alt, just double click, double click, double click, double click, double click, double click, and double click, right? Then you copy, Control C to copy, then you open your objects here, then just paste them in here. Then over here, just like how you held Alt, I didn't double click, I just clicked the end, and Alt, I held Alt, click the end again, click the end, 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 and I brought my comma, and I just saved, and then it has arranged it like how I'm expecting it to be arranged, right? So now that it is here like how we want it, what we first of all want to do is we want to create a few use states that will help us show our models, right? So I'll create the use state. I'll say const show model, right? I'll say const show model, set show model. Okay, now then I say use states, and I say use states, right? So this use state is going to take a boolean, right? That is false. You remember I mentioned before we can specify the type here, but no, it's not really needed like that. So just false, it's okay. Then under here we can use our use effect. We can import that, or we can just use the snippet, and then quickly take this one out, import this. Alright, then inside our use effect function over here we can set show model to be the is open prop, right? Can set it to be the is open prop, and then we can come to const handle close, right? Then inside the const handle close, we are going to say use callback. Alright, we are going to use the use callback. Okay, so alright, so inside the use callback we are definitely going to pass our dependencies, but let's first of all see what if disabled exists. If the model has been set to disabled, right, then what do we want to do? What do we want to do? Now what we want to do is we just want to return. Okay, we don't want to do anything if we want to close the model, right? If we want to close the model, and if we want to close the model, but the model maybe due to some loading or something has been set to disabled, we don't want to do anything. We just want to return, regardless of whether you are clicking on the close button, right? So that is why we are returning the disabled prop, right, in the handle close function, right? Now, after we've been able to check for that particular situation, we can now set show model to be false in case that is not the issue that we encountered or we set things up for, right? And just in case that wasn't for that issue, right? So basically then we set timeout. Set timeout. Set timeout, and then we say that this timeout should be an unclose, right? And then we just initialize the function, the unclose function inside. Then we set it to 300 milliseconds. That should be here. 300 milliseconds. Alright, this is awesome. So we have I thought we were supposed to use callback. Use callback, it has to be imported from React. Okay, it wasn't imported. Let's import it. Alright, so it has been imported. Let's quickly refresh the page. Okay. Alright, it's here now. Okay, this is awesome. We can move on to the next thing. Now what we want to do is we want to also handle submit, right? So handle submit. I think for that one, what we can do is you just have to copy and paste and just change a few things, right? So for the handle close, the dependencies here is basically going to be disabled, and unclose, right? These are the dependencies of which our function is going to work, right? Then you can just paste this and then say handle submit instead. Handle submits, or handle submits, however you want to call it. Then inside here we set the modal to false, obviously. Okay, I mean there's no need to set the modal to false actually, so no problem. We are not trying to close it, right? So there's no need to set it to false. And then what we want to do is that we want to clean this one, and then we want to pass the onSubmit. We want to pass this onSubmit function, and then we want, as for this disabled, we have already checked. Then over here we just change this to onSubmit, which is the dependency, right? Then now that we have this, we can just copy this one and just move on to the next thing, and then that is going to be handle secondary action, right? Handle secondary action, handle secondary action. Now, for the handle secondary action, what we want to do is we don't want to only check for disabled, but I also want to check if there is no secondary action, right? So if there is no secondary action, just return. Or if the model has been disabled due to some actions or whatever that is going on, just return. Don't do anything else, right? Now, we just have to change this to what? Secondary action function, right? Secondary action function, right? And then over here, we just make this secondary action, right? So, I mean, now that we've been able to set this up, let's go into our return statement and start writing something. Something we can display onto the page. I think I have to use this. Okay, so first of all, we are going to have an empty fragment, and then inside we are going to have to create a div. The first class name for that div is flex, so we are just going to create that, and then inside we are going to pass in the following class names. We pass in specify center, item center, overflow x hidden, actually. Overflow x hidden. Then we pass in what? Overflow y auto. We can pass in overflow y auto, and then we pass in fixed. Then we pass in insert 0. Then we pass in z50. We pass in z50. Okay. Then we go on to add the outline none. We want to say outline none, basically. And then we want to set the BG neutral to 800 over 70. 800 over 70. Then right after that, now before we move on, we need to make sure that we see that in case it's not open, in case we don't set it's open, right, or it's open is not set to true, we want to just return, right, just want to return. And so right, just want to return. So basically this should, then we can, oh, why is it frozen? Over here we can just come and pass is open. Oh, is open is equal to true is still the same thing, right? It's the same as just leaving it like this, right? So when we set is open like this, we should be able to see our model, right? We should be able to see it still. Okay, so now that we've been able to set it up, let's go back to the model here, and then inside this one inside this one, right, we're going to have another div here, and then the first class is going to be relative. So I'm just going to create a div like this, and then inside this div we're going to have the following class names. We're going to say w full. Now on medium size screens, we want to set it to be what? We want to say the width should be what? 4/6, right? Then we can say that on large screens, we want to set the width to be 3/6, right? So 3/6. Then we can say that on the large screens, right? The large screens that we have, we want to set the width to be 2/5. Oh, it looks like I'm using the wrong slashes. So yes, right. So extra large screens, that should be the size basically of the width, and then we can now say that the margin vertical should be 6, right? Margin vertical should be 6. Then we can say mx auto. That means the margin horizontal should be auto. And then we can give the full width, right? And then we can say that large screens should get an automatic height, right? And then we can say that medium screens should also get an automatic height. All right, now that we've been able to set this up, I want to go inside this one particular div here, right? Inside this one particular div, I want to pass in another div, right? But you see, for this particular div, right, for its class names, we are going to set certain conditions inside this class name. So what we do is we open this curly braces, and then we use the backtick so that we can concatenate our logic, right? So first of all, the first one is going to be, we want to translate, right? We want to translate. Now, we are translating for how long? So it's going to take the 300 instead. Then we set it to full, right? Then after, we can take, I want to make this come here so that we can see what is going on. All right, so over here, then inside we can say that when we show the model, right, when we show the model in general, what do we want to do? We want to translate it. Let's put that in the quotation marks, right? So we want to translate y to 0, right? And then after, we would basically translate to full, right? So all right, so basically we are saying that if the model shows translate in the y-axis 0, but if not, we just set it to this one, translate y full. Okay, then right after working on that, we can move on to another condition whereby we say that show model, right? And then this one is also going to have its opacity, based on these conditions, right? And then so opacity, and then we can set that to 0. Oh, come on. Set that to 0 basically, and then right after we've been able to set that up, we should be good to go. And then inside this div, we will create another div, and then that one, the first class name is going to have its translate, so we can just create that. Oh, it looks like our VS Code is becoming slow again. Let's try to save things and see. Okay, it should be here now. Alright, so the first class name is translate, so I'm just putting it inside. Then we would say that after we translate, we want to set the height to be full. Then we want to say on large screens, what do we want to do? We want to give it an automatic height, right? So we want to give it an automatic height with a border with like 0, with a border of 0. Oh no, we want the border 0. Okay, then we round, we make sure we give it a rounded LG. Then we give it a relative. Okay, then we save display flex. Then we save flex col or flex column. Then we give it a full width. Okay, then a BG height. Then we say outline none. Then a focus outline. We basically want to say that whenever we are focused on it, we want to set the outline to be what? None. Okay, so on focus we want to set the outline to be none. Alright, so now that we've been able to set this up, what we want to do is inside this div, right? Just inside this div, right? Inside this div, we want to have extra divs inside this div, right? Okay, so quickly refreshing, see nothing still shows here. Let's keep working. So inside this div, we want to have extra divs inside this one, right? Now over here, let's clean this one real quick. Inside this, we want to set flex, right? Then item center. We want to set item center. And then we want to set P6. The padding to be 6, and then rounded. We want to set the rounded to be what? We want to set it to be rounded, right? Rounded. I want to become rounded top. We want to set the rounded top to be. I think let's make it MD. Okay. Oh, yeah, I mean rounded top. Let's make it MD. Then what else? Then we make the justify center. We set it to justify center. Then we set it to relative. Okay. Then we set the border button. The border button to be 1 pixel. I guess we need to actually define it to be 1 pixel here. 1 pixel. Then right after that has been set up, you can see that it is right here, right? You can see it. Okay. So we are creating our model component here. Okay, so inside here we want to create a button, right? So we want to create a button that is going to do a few things. So inside this button, let's pass in a few attributes. So we are going to set an on click on this button, right? And then this button is going to handle close in general. This button is going to handle close, right? Now, let's give this button a few class names. Okay, let's give the button a few class names, right? But before we give the button a few class names, we need to add our icon, right? So what icon are we trying to use? Are we trying to add? We're trying to use IO close, right? So you can say IOMD close. close, then we close it. It's a closed component. So we just come up here and then import it from our React icons. So we come and then import it, pasting it inside, then from React icons. Then we take it from IO. Alright. Now that it is from IO, you can see it here, right? So what we can do is we can now add our class names. Let's add a class name now. For the class name for that particular button, what we would add to it is we want to make sure that first of all we give it a padding of 1. Okay. Then we set the border to 0, right? And then after we pass in the hover, we pass in on hover, right? And then we set that we set the opacity. So whenever you hover over it, you want to set the opacity to 70, right? And then you pass on the transition, right? And then the absolute, then we say left 9, right? Okay, now that we've been able to set this up, we want to come down here under the button and then add another div. The first class name for that div is going to be text LG actually. So let's just do that. And then inside we are going to say what? We are going to pass in the title. So we're going to pass in the title, right? The title prop. Right, inside this title prop, if you want to see it, let's go to app.tsx and pass in the title prop, right? Then we can see something like register, right? Or login or something, right? I mean, it depends on whatever you want to write, right? Let me write the register, I think. Let's use that. I want to use that, alright? Or sign up. I want to use that. Okay. So now that we have this inside, you can see a change here, right? What we can do is we can go back here and then add the class names that were left, right? Now, that is going to be font semi-bold, right? Alright, so font semi-bold here. And then what you want to do is right under here, right under this div that we have over here, that which is the div under the title div, right? You create another div over here, okay? And then this div is basically going to contain the body, okay? So we can pass in the body prop over here, right? Then we give it a few class names. I mean, if I wrote anything inside the body, you should see it here, appear here, right? So let's pass in the body prop. Okay, now that we have the body prop, we need to give it a few class names actually. So what are the class names? Let me just write some text here, right? What are the class names? So the class names that we're going to pass inside the body is that we're going to set that to relative, right? And then we are going to set the padding to 6. Then we say that the font should be semi-bold, right? And then you can see that here, this is what we have, nice and clean. Okay, so now that we have worked on the body, let me clean this sample text. I'm quickly going to come below this one, and I'm going to create another div, right? And then inside this div, this is where we are going to be having a secondary action button and stuff, right? This is where we are going to be adding our buttons. But before we do anything, let's first of all add our class names. Then we'll go and create our button component. Okay, so inside the class name here, what we are going to be passing is we are going to say this is going to be display flex. Then we say it's going to be flex row. Oh, flex row. Okay, then we set that on camera once again. Looking at how things are going over here and how our things are arranged, I feel like we need to make a few changes. So let me quickly clean this first, right? Let us go to the body side, right? Just so we are safe in the future. just so we are safe in the future. Let's make this flex auto. Right, let's make this flex auto instead, and then let's come down here and then see flex code instead, right? Then we give it a gap of 2, and then we say P6, right? Okay, this is awesome. Now that we've been able to set this up, right, we want to come inside this div and again create another div inside this div, right? Then what are we going to do to this? Now this is where we are going to say, let's pass in our class name, right? So what are the class names that we want to pass to? We want to say it's display flex again, flex code, right? Then we want to set the gap to be 2. Then we want to say P6, right? Now inside this, oh, that's a mistake actually. Flex row. Okay, so then we set the item to be item center, right? And then we set the gap to be 4, and then I think the gap should be 4. It's way better that way. And then but the width, we set the width to be 4. Now inside here we want to display certain things based off of certain things, right? But before we display them, we need to create a button component, right? So let's quickly create a button. Let's quickly write it here, and then we come back to import it later, right? So inside we're going to come to the component here and then create a button. So we're basically going to say button.css, okay? Then we're going to say RAFCE, and then we create the button. Then inside here we just have to import the button that we created, right? Okay, so as you can see, the button is what is showing here. You can see that this is the button that is shown here actually. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to now go into the button and pass in props and then style it so that we can use it everywhere in our application. Okay, so let's go here and then let's quickly say interface. Let's create the interface for the button, right? Let's create the interface for the button, and then let's give it a label. Let's give it a label string or any. Oh, forgot to pass in the name. Typing way too fast. Okay, so we have the button prop here, and just like this one, I was also getting that error. That is why we set the string or any, just like how we did for the props above over here, right? So that is good. We can now continue. So for the first prop interface that we defined, you can see it has been defined nicely. We're going to have an on click too as well, and then here we are going to open and then pass in an event, right? Now this event is going to have a type of react.mouse event, and then inside we are going to say it's going to be an HTML or that open sentence. So here we are going to say that it's going to be what? An HTML button element, right? Now for the button elements that we have here, HTML button element, then inside here we want to create this and then set it to a void, right? Alright, so our on-click function has been defined nicely, or our on-click interface has been defined nicely. I want to say disabled. I want to pass in disabled. Disabled is going to be optional, and then we set it to Boolean. I hope you are following. Then over here we come to the outline, and then we set it to Boolean, right? And then we can now come and then say small, and then we set the boolean. Alright, then icon, then we set that to the icon type. Set that to the icon type. But this icon type, we are going to have to import it from React icons, right? So what we can do is we can just come and import. Okay, I think I have to write the icon type, and then we take it from React icons, right? Okay, so now that we've been able to set this up, let us quickly define our functional components with the interface that we created. So we will say what's button props. Then after we have been able to set up the button props, what do? We pass in the objects here, and then we passing all our interfaces in as we pass all our interfaces in as the props, right? So as I said before, I would double click on this to select. Now hold Alt and double click the next one. Hold Alt, double click. While I'm still holding, I'm double clicking, right? Then I just copy, and I come here to paste. Then I can just click at the end here, hold Alt, click at the end here, click the end here, click the end, click the end, click the end, and then I will just end that over there. Okay, then we can now create our button and pass in the class names that we would use to style them, right? Now inside here, we want to first of all see that our button is going to take an on-click, and then this on-click is definitely going to be the on-click, right? Come on, that was pretty easy. Okay, so after that, we want to also set the disabled to the disabled prop that we have. So disabled, right? And then we want to give it some class names. Okay, so these class names, as usual, are going to be a little, so I'm creating these objects, these curly braces, and then I'm adding the backticks, right? Then inside, we can now start by saying relative, right? So the button's first class name is going to be relative, and we are saying that when the button is disabled, what do we want to do? We want to set the opacity to be 70, all right? Then we say that when it's disabled again, we want to set the cursor to be not allowed, right? So we want to say cursor not allowed here. Okay, so over here, what we can say is rounded LG, right? And then once we have the rounded LG, we can set the hover property. Then this hover property is going to set our opacity to be 80, right? So whenever we hover our mouse over the button, we want to set the opacity to be what? 80. So I'll add it to this hover thing here, right? Now that has been able to work, we want to make sure that action is smooth. So we add a transition. Then we set the width to be full. Okay, now that the width has been set to be full, we can now write certain conditions to display certain styles, right? So over here, we can first of all set the outline, right? So we want to say that in case there's outline, we want to do a few things. So let's create our two conditional strings here. Let's end it nicely. Okay, it's already ended, right? So we can just write whatever we are looking for. So when the button has an outline prop assigned to it, right? Or when outline is set to true on the button component, what do we want to do? We want to set the background to be white. Okay, now that the background has been set to be white, in case the outline hasn't been passed, what do? We set the background to be rows 500, BG rows 500, right? Okay, let's see. Okay, everything works out fine. Everything works out fine. I don't think we have passed in any text yet for us to start seeing the changes, but I mean, we should start seeing the changes once we are done passing in the. Okay, but I mean, we could try. Let me write something. Yeah, you can see it here, right? So let's keep applying the styles. So you can see that we have this one all set up over here. You need another outline. Oh, come on. So I'm going to copy this one, and then I'll paste this, right? Let's give it its space. Alright. Okay, I don't know why it's freezing again, but let's just style it. Okay, let's just style. So over here, I'll set the text to white. I'll set the text. Before we set the BG to white, right? So over here, let's just work on the borders instead, right? So once the outline is out there, we want to set the border to be what? 2, right? And then we set the border again to be black. Okay, I want to set the border to be black, and then over here I want to set the border to be rose. Okay, set the border to be rose. Then over here we can copy. Okay, even if you don't want to copy, then we come down and add another outline crop styling. Then here we want to set the text to be black in case it is outlined, and then we want to set the text here to be white. Okay, in case it is not outlined. Okay, now we've been able to set that, but we are left with one more. So I'll just copy this, paste this one more time, and then write small. So if we pass the small pop, what does it do? It sets the border to 1 pixel, or just border. Okay. Then this one, in case it's not small, what does it do? It set the border to. Okay. So let's quickly refresh this and see if this one will change. No, it's still trying to save. I don't know. Okay, it's here now. Okay, so basically oh, it's still not saved. That's crazy. Just wish it would stop freezing. But now that we have this, what we want to do is we want to be able to add an icon, right? So over here let me add an alias to it. So I would say icon instead. Right, so we can use it as icon with a capital I. Then over here we can write our condition. Let's say icon. Then inside here, what do we want to do? We want to display icon, right? Then size 24. Then over here we want to set the class name. We want to set the class name to what? Absolute, left 4, and top 3. Right, then under here, in between here, you can just pass in the label. Okay, so we have to end this one here. Okay, this feels a little strange. Okay, so what we basically need to do is we need to be able to pass the label here, right? So we'll go into this side, which is we need to come to the place where the button was over here, right? And then over here, this is where we are going to be passing our label, right? Do you understand? So for us to be able to pass the label, we just say label, right? Right, so we can just say label and then pass in just a random text or something, understand? Or we can say submit. Okay, so we can just submit or pass in a label, right? But here's the thing that we need to take into consideration over here, right? This place, we can't just pass the label straight like that because we are going to be using the model in somewhere else, right? So what we want to pass instead is our action label. Do you understand? Our action label. And then what else do we want to pass? What else do we want to pass? We want to also pass in what? The disabled prop. So we pass in a disabled prop to as well, right? Then over here, what we want to do is we want to add in what? The onClick, right? The onClick, and then for the onClick, we say handle submit, right? Now, even though we've been able to set up the handle submit button over here, right, we need to be able to set up something similar over here too as well. But this one is going to be for the secondary action, right, in case there is any. So we say that if there is any secondary action call passed, right, and there's a secondary action, and there's a secondary action label, right, then we want to render the following. Right? But the only thing here is that over here, we're going to pass in the secondary action label, right? And then over here, we're going to handle secondary action, right? So, and then when we come here, under here, we can pass in the footer. I felt like there was something wrong with the action label or the button that we are trying to create. So let me just pass in a random text like submit, right? And let's go into the button to check the stylings. Okay, so button has a class name. Okay, how about a pattern? I think for the button styles, adding a padding wouldn't do any bad actually. I mean, you could just try it, right? So let's not hesitate and then add the button. Let's not hesitate and let's just try to add it to see the results that we get, right? So looking at it, okay, we can't just add a padding like that, right? We can't just add a padding. What we want to do is we want to just set it into a small prop over here, right? So we just copy this and paste this, right? And then we'll say that if small is there or if small exists, we want to set the font to what? Light, right? And then we want to take this font light and then paste it here and then change a few things, which is what we want to make sure this place is semi bold, right? I think it's a small b. All right, now that we have this, we can copy this one too as well, right? And then we can basically say that let's set, if it's a small, we can set the padding, the horizontal padding, which is py to be 1, but when it is when that is not the case, we can set the py to be 3. Do you understand? So this is basically the button that I was expecting us to see, and so now it works like how we want it to work. Okay, so now that we understand this, and we have basically been able to set up, let's go to our model. Let's go to the model here, and for the icon, let's say we want to add an icon, right? If we go into the model here, and then we pass an icon, say icon, and then we see something like the IO, something like the IO and D close. You should see the icon being passed over here nicely, right? I think it would be nice done like this. Yeah, nice one. So yeah, we don't need an icon right now, and we need to pass in the action label instead. Okay, so now that we've been able to pass on these things and set up this part of modal, right, we want to move on. Okay, we want to move on. Now we want to make sure that we are creating register UI in such a way that when we open the menu here and we click on sign up, it basically opens this one for us, and then when we click on this, it takes it away, right? Let me quickly refresh. Okay, so now that we have the button, and then we've been able to set up the model, right? We want to now set up our state. Okay, so how do we manage our state? You remember that we installed Zustand. Okay, so what we want to do right now is we want to collapse the component and then now create a folder called what? Hooks. Okay, so inside hooks, I would open that up and I'll say I want to create use register what? Model.ts. Okay, model.ts. So use register model.ts. Okay, that is going to be our hook, right? Now inside the hook here, what we can do is you can first of all import, or if you like, we don't import, right? We can just start by creating our interface, right? So interface here, then you can see what? Register model store, right? That can be our interface, and then inside you can see it's open, and we set that to be a boolean, right? Then on open, we open this, and then we set it to a void, right? Then on close, we set that to be void again, right? Then now that we've been able to define these things, right, what we want to do is we want to come here and say const what? Use register model. Use register model. We want to equate it to what? A create that. Then this create, we are going to import it from our Zustand package, right? So let's come down here and then import create from Zustand. Okay, from Zustand. Okay, then after we've been able to create, after we've been able to import, we can now use this create to, so inside here, right, what we can do is we can pass in, okay, then you can pass in the register model store, and then inside here you can now pass in set, right? Then while the set is in here, we just pass in our arrow, and then this arrow is going to open up a bracket. Then inside we have a bunch of objects that are going to fit in, and then that is going to be is open. We're going to set that default to be false, right? And then you can come and then say on open to, you can set that one to also be false, right? Then then we set that to be a function. We set it, right? So here we can say set, right? Then we open this, then we see it's open. I want to set that to true. Now let me copy and paste this and say what? On close. Okay, on close. Then we set that to what? False. Okay, now this is awesome. Now that we have this, we can basically just what? Export default. Right, we can export default, use register model, right? Okay, this is awesome. So now that we have been able to now that we've been able to create this use register model here, right? What we want to do now is we want to work on the register model component, of which we are going to create inside our models folder here, right? Okay, but we need one more component that we would use, right? And that is going to be our input. Okay, so let us quickly create the inputs. Then after the inputs, then we now come and work on the component itself. Okay, so over here I'm going to quickly create a new folder and name that inputs, right? Then inside the inputs I would say inputs.css. okay, then I can say ReactJS, right? Now how do we see what is going on with this inputs, right? What we can do to find out what is going on with the inputs is that, fine, this is the inputs that we've created, right? That is a nice one. Let us create a register model and work with it. Then through that we will now import the input, and then we see the changes going on live, so that we don't get confused with how styling works in general, right? So over here, what we basically want to do is we want to create our register model, right? So we can say register model.csx. Okay, now you can see REFCE, right? And then what we can do is over here we can just remove this and then now show the register model instead, right? And then import it, right? But what is going to bring up this register model, you ask? Now we want to make sure that when we click on sign up, it brings it up, right? So what we want to do is we want to go into the place where we find this, and that is going to be the nav bar, user menu. Okay, so inside the user menu here, we want to come and then import hook that we created, right? So we can come and say const what? We can come and say const to register what? Register model, right? Register model, and then we import it from the hook that we created, right? So use register model. Okay, so now that we've been able to import it, what we can do is we can come down here, see over here, right? You can just say register model dot on open, right? So on open, then now what happens is when we click on it, okay, when we click on it, it's supposed to open it up for us. Okay, I mean, we have not added the things that we need to add, right? So we wouldn't see it, right? So let us start adding the things that we need to add. Okay, so over here inside the register model, right, we want to work on a few things. Now the few things we want to work on is that, first of all, we want to now start importing our hook, right? So you say const what? Register modal use what? Register modal, right? Then we close that. Then over here we want to come down and set its loading because we are going to be using it. So it's loading. Then we set its loading. Set its loading to be a use state. Oh no. We're going to set it to be a use state of false as the default. And then inside here we can come and const a few things out of React Hook form. There's one thing that we didn't install, which is React Hook form, and that is basically what is going to help us do certain things, right? That is handle our form submissions and stuff like that, right? So we just say npm I React Hook form, right? And then that should install. Now while it's installing, let us just start. So we're going to extract a bunch of objects from there, right? The first object we're going to extract is register, right? And then after this, right? After this register that we now take the handle submits. Then down here we take the form data, right? Then form state actually. Take the form states. Using form data these days. I've been using form data these days a lot of times, right? So that was why I got confused. I want to good. Then over here we pass in what? Errors. Let me equate it to use form so that we can go faster. Okay. It looks like we need to import the use form separately because it's not showing for us to import it straight, right? So what we want to do is let's come here and then import a bunch of things, right? So say field values, right? Then we take the submit handler, then we take our use form, then we take all of these bad boys from where? We take them from where? We take them from the React Hook form, right? So we say use form so that we can go faster. Okay, so use form, and then we set it to be what? I want to set these ones to be field values. So field values, right? Then inside here we pass in the default value for the fields, right? So in our case we have name, and we set the name to an empty string. Then we come here and then take the email and set the email to as well to an empty string. Then we take the password, set the password to as well as an empty string, right? Now that we've been able to set this up, right, we want to come, okay, so we're already getting this out, okay, so you can see, okay, what's the error? Why is it? See, it does not exist in the partial. Well, we are still building, so let us finish. Yes. So const on submit here. Const on submit here. We would have to be defined. The type would have to be defined by the what on submit handler, right? The submit handler, and then it's going to be done based off of the what the field values. Okay, then inside you're going to set it to be an asynchronous function, right? And then inside this function, what we can do is you can set loading to be true. Set is loading to be true. Then we have our try catch block right under it. Try catch. We can log out for now. And we can even use the toast. So you can see toast.error. So toast.error. Then we see something went wrong. Something went wrong. Alright. So now that we're able to use that inside here, you can just write some allo things, some allo, things that don't really work. An API that doesn't really work, right? Just to test things out. So I don't think we've installed Axios. Let's install Axios quickly, right? So that we can import it. Let's quickly import Axios from the top. So import Axios from Axios, right? Then when we come down here, we can see what maybe some posts. Okay, since it's registered, we just use posts, and then we now passing the API. Just passing our API /v1/register, just in case, and then we passing the data. Okay, and we passing the data. Okay, so the data has been passed. Obviously, we are going to have to pass data here as well, right? Now, both of the data have been passed through. We all know it doesn't work, but at the end of the day, we want to make sure that when we hit the submit, what does it do? At the end of the day, when it's successful, it closes it, right? So we say that what on close, right? Okay, this is awesome. Then over here, we want to say that finally we set is loading to be false. Some people use promises for this, so they'll be like, they'll do await then dots, then they go to dot catch, then they go to dot finally, right? So it can work if you research your way through. Okay, so now that we've been able to set that up, what we can first of all do is, before we pass in any type of thing, we can come in here straightforward and then start adding our model, right? So let's create this and then pass the model in. Let's pass the model in, right? So the model going to close, then we pass the disabled to be what is loading. It's loading, right? Then over here we come and say it's open, and then we say that the is open should be what register model that is open, right? Then over here we can set the title. We can set the title to be what register, right? Then over here we can set the action label to be what continue, right? And then we can come here and then set the on close to be what Guess. Register model dot onClose. Hope you got it right. So we have on submit. Then inside the on submit we have what? Oh, come on. Then inside the on submit we have the handle submit. Then this handle submit is going to take in the what? The on submit that we have, right? This on submit. That is taking it from there. Do you understand? So basically you are going to see the results of what this is going to add up to. Right, so now that we have this, realize if I click, it should open up. Oh, this is strange. If I click on it, it should open up. Right, so okay, let me quickly stretch this out. I guess we need to check a few things. Check the terminal. Everything seems to be okay, but it's just some styling issues that is going on somewhere. Okay. What we are going to do is let us add the rest of the things that we'll add. Okay, let us add the rest of the things that we'll add before we start doing anything to break our code, right? So let's pass in the body. So for the body content, we are going to create a new component to handle that. Or is there a component like a variable to handle that, right? So for the body side, the body content, we are basically going to say const body content, right? Body content, and then inside here we are going to open up this bracket, and then inside this div, we're going to add a few class names, right? Few class names that we need. Okay, so here we're going to pass in class name, and then we'll say what? Flex call, right, or flex column. Then we say gap4, right? Then right after that has been done, okay, we are getting an error. It says says JSS actually not. So 49. Yeah, okay, I see where it is. Let us just pass in the body content. Alright. So the body content has been passed through, and so okay, so it's here. So inside this div, we're going to add a heading component of which we are about to create, but we can add the input for now. Add the input for now. Okay, so for the input, what we can do is I don't think we actually created the inputs. So okay, we'll create it immediately, but let's quickly fix our model. Why is it not showing? Okay, let's quickly reduce the screen and try to debug it. Inside the user menu, we set this so that it opens it up, right? So open. Okay, then that means we need to go to the modal and then check for a few things. Check for a few things. Let's give it a border. Let's give it a border here. Okay. Oh, this is strange. This is a little strange, honestly, because everything should have been working fine. So I'm wondering why. Oh, we really need to pass the border. Why do we need to pass the border though? Okay. Okay. I don't think we need to pass the border. It's like it doesn't display immediately or something. So for that I think we need to change something over here, right? So I think it has something to do with the use effect. I think it has something to do with the use effects that is going on here, right around here, right? So with that, this one here has to be set on is open. Okay, so that was the error that we had to fix. I'm glad we were able to fix it. And then yes, now it works because it started feeling strange. Alright, so we can go back to our body content that we were creating. So inside our body content here, realize that inside our body content here, we try to create our input elements, right? The elements that we wanted to add, right? Now, let's first of all add our header, because we need to add a header component, right? So it's going to be a heading. So heading, and then for this heading component, you are going to have to create it right around just inside the components folder. Okay, heading.tsx. Then right after creating that, we come and create the input, and then we use all of them inside. Okay, so inside the heading here, what we can basically do is we can first of all say our REFCE, and then we have the heading here. And then if we go back into our register modal and then we import the heading, you'll see that it will appear just as we want it to. Okay, so inside the heading, we want to start doing a few things. First of all, since we are going to be passing props inside the heading, let's start defining our interface, right? So inside here, we are going to create the interface, and then for the interface, we need to pass the name. Why do I keep forgetting this? Then we say the heading props, right? So heading props here. Oh, heading props. Then inside the heading props, we pass in the title. Then we say string. Then subtitle. String. Then we say center. Then that is going to be a boolean, right? Now this one is going to be an optional. This one is also going to be an optional. The center, right? The title is going to have to be there all the time, right? So we're going to set that to. We want to make sure that our React application knows that we are using that interface. So we make sure we set it to what? Functional components, and then heading props. This is awesome. Okay, so over here we have our div, class name, div class name, and then we set that class name to be what? So inside here, we're going to be doing a few logic plays, right? So we're going to say that if center prop is passed, right, we want to set the text center. We want to say text center, right? But if it's not passed, then we want to say what? Text start. Okay. So now that we have that, we want to come into this div inside here and then pass in the first class, which is text 2xl. Yeah, text 2xl. That is the first class for it, and then we set the font bold. Okay. Now I realize that up to this while we've been having errors, right? So the error is basically because we have to just copy this, and then place them in here with their respective commas. Right. Okay. Now, yeah. So font bold. Okay. Then inside here we pass in the title. Alright, so after we've been able to do that, let's copy and paste this, pass in the subtitle, and then change the class names a bit. So here we are going to say what? Font light. Let's clean this. We say font light. We say font light, and then we say the text neutral 500, mt2, right? This is awesome. Text neutral 500 and mt2. Okay, now that we have this working out how we expect it to work out, we can now use it inside our register model here, right? So inside here for our register model, we can give it a title of welcome to Airbnb, right? And then we can give it a subtitle of create an account. Can give it a subtitle of create an account. Now you can see it is here, right? Okay, that is awesome. Now that we have seen where these things are, what do we want to do next, right? Now what we want to do next is we want to work on the inputs, right? But first of all, let me see something, because something doesn't feel right here. I think this is supposed to be in the middle. I think so. Let's try justify center and see. Okay, it's still not in the middle. Let's try item center. Okay, it's in the middle. Well, come to think of it, I don't want it that way too though. I think we passed in a center prop too as well, and that is what should have worked that's out, yeah. But do we want it like this? I don't know. Okay, let's make it like this and see, because I don't want it to be like this too. I don't know. Airbnb, create an account. Let's keep it like this and see, right? So inside here, the inputs that we have, we need to create it, right? We need to create the input section, right? So for the input section in general, what we first of all need to understand is that we are going to be passing props. So obviously going to pass in our interface or create our interface. Then we say input props as usual, right? And then inside the input props we pass in what? String, right? We pass in a string, then we say label, and then the label is going to be what? String as well. Type is going to be string. Now let's not forget that the type is an optional prop. Okay, then we pass in disabled, which is also supposed to be an optional prop, and then we say that that one is going to be a boolean. You know that disabled is going to be a boolean, and then we say that format price okay, that is also going to be a boolean. Format price is also going to be a boolean. Then we set the required to be a boolean as well, and then we can set the register to also say use from register, and then for this one, use from register, we're going to get it from React hooks, right? Use from register, and then we pass in what, based on what the field names, right? Based on the field values, right? So okay, it works here. And then I'll say errors, small letters, errors. Then we pass in what? Field errors. It's here. Alright, imported from React hook form. Okay, so now that we have these bad boys working out like we expect them to, what we want to do right now is we want to say React FC, right? We want to make sure that we know that we are using this interface, right? Then inside we say what? Input props. Then inside the input props, you know that we just copy this, copy this. Oh no. Come on. Then copy this. Then copy. Control C to copy, come and paste. And then you add your comments to the respective lines. Add your comments. Then you save. It arranges it with a prettier. Then we can move on. Okay. So now that we have these bad boys working out like we want them to work out, what we want to do is we want to come inside here and then start creating our component. So the first class name for this first div that I want to do is widthful, right? So we already give that class name, and then what we want to pass in is relative. We want to say relative, right? Then inside this relative, we want to come inside here and then check for the format price, right? We want to check for the format price, right? So if we say format price exists, if it's there, then we want to render something, right? So what are we trying to render? By $, and that is going to be imported by React icons, right? So size 24 is okay. Size 24 is okay. Then we would see we are passing in a few class names. Now the class names, we are going to say text neutral 700, right? Then we have absolute, we have top 5, then we have left 2, right? So we save that, and then what do? Now after this condition has been set, right, we want to come down here and then add our input component here, right? Now, first of all, we want to remove this. Before. Let's first of all remove that first, right? Or even if we don't remove it, we can quickly set the type. So we can just say type. I think I need to end it. Yeah. So type, right? Type as we set to type. Then the ID, we set the ID. Send the ID to ID. Then you say what? Disabled, right? So now that we have the disabled, the ID and all these things, and we've been able to set the type to as well, we are going to have to add placeholder. Then placeholder, we want to give in a little space here so that we can perform a really nice. You see, material design has this animation. Whenever you click on focus, we want to add that animation. It's a really nice thing to learn, a really nice trick to learn. Then I would open up this and then spread the register. Then after spreading it, I want to pass in ID. I want to pass in the ID actually. Right. Then after passing in the ID, I want to set the required. Okay, that is awesome. Okay. Now we want to pass in. Looks like we are getting an error. Let's refresh. Okay. No error. Okay, let's quickly check the terminal. It says register is not a function. Well, that's weird because it is a function. Looking at this, but let's finish what we got going on. Then we would handle the rest. Okay, so basically we have this going on, right? And then what we want to do is we want to add a class name so that we can style them, right? So in order for us to be able to style them, what we want to do is we want to give it a peer. Alright, so then we say width full, then we give it a padding 4, then we say pt6. It keeps saying, well, I didn't get that error when I was working with the pilot actually, so I'm just a little, but let's just finish. So pt6, then we have font light, then we'll take one bg white as well, then border 2, then rounded ND, then we have outline 1, then we have transition, then we have disabled. So whenever it's disabled, we want to set the opacity to 70, right? And then we want to check for disabled again. Once it's disabled, we want to say what? Cursor not allowed, right? Okay. Now we want to pass in some small logic. We want to pass in some small logic, right? So let's quickly cover this with a curly braces, and then the backtick, and also another backtick. Right, then over here you can see format price, then we say PL 9 PL9 PL4 PL9 PL4. Then here we can pass in, that's padding left, right? But that's padding left, by the way. So then we now check for errors. We want to say that if there is an error, or if there are errors, depending on the particular elements that we are selected on, or that is active, we want to show some stylings, right? Now, what are the stylings we want to show? We want to say that, let's put this in quotations, and we want to say border rows 500, right? And then in case there are no errors, we want to say border neutral 300, right? Border neutral, border neutral 300. Alright. Border neutral, border neutral 300. Right. Then once that is okay, what we want to do next is we want to check again for another error, then add the styling for that, right? Or create the styling for that. So we'll come down here. Oh no. So I'll put that in here, and then I'll say focus. So for the focus, then focus again is going to say that the border should be black, right? Border black. Alright, so inside here we are creating a label, and then inside this label we are passing in, okay, I want us to get rid of this error. So what we'll do is, okay, I want to get rid of this. Inside here, right? What am I spreading? Register, right? After spreading my register, what do I want to do? Right? I'm going to open it up, right? It still says register is not a function. That's weird. I'll pass in the ID and this register. Sorry, required. Sorry. Let's add the type in here to see. Why is it wasting too much time? I guess that's the reason why. Yeah, I'm coming. Let's leave it this way and work everything out. So over here, the label here that we have, we want to pass in another class name here, and then we want to say that that should be absolute, right? That should be absolute text MD, and then duration, we're going to set that to 150, right? We're going to set that to 150, and we're going to transform, right? And then after transforming, we want to what? Translate. We want to translate y3, right? And then we want to top 3, we want to put it at top 5, basically. And then z, we want to give it a z index of 5 as well, right? We want to give it a z of 5. And the origin, we want to set the origin to 0. Right, so this is how we are going to set the origin to 0. Right, now we are going to have to write another condition here to display certain styles for our labels. Right, what are these conditions? Before we start writing them, you know already, we need to create our curly braces, or wrap our class name behind the curly braces. So we use the backticks for the right side, and backticks for the left side as well. Then over here we pass this, okay, in there. Then what else? Say format price left 9, and then we are going to say what? Left 4. Then down here we would have what? Peer placeholder shown, and then we are going to scale to 100, right? And then we are going to say peer placeholder shown again. I'm going to translate that to y0, and then we are going to say peer focus above, or peer focus, basically peer focus, and then we are going to set that to a scale 75, right? And then peer focus, we are going to translate y4, negative translation, right? Then after, we need to pass in our error conditions again. So for the error conditions, we want to say check for the errors based on the ID of that input element. And then if there is an error, I need you to make sure that the text is what? Rows 500. Text is rows 500, and then 500. And then if there are no errors, I need you to make sure that it's text in 400. Alright, so then inside here we pass in the label, components, basically, right? Now that we've been able to set this up, right, we want to come inside register here, and then we want to pass in the input, right? So we want to give it an ID of email first. Let's give it an ID of email first. Then we give it a name of what? Name. And then we pass in a disabled, and then down we set it to is loading. We set it to is loading. Then register, we give register here. Then over here we set errors. So for the error you can see what errors, right? So as you can see, everything is back to normal, and then we can set the required. All right, so you can see that things are back to normal as we expected, and basically we as we have been able to set this up over here like this, right? And then we've been able to pass it through this section like this, which is the content, or the body content in general. We would want to basically add like a placeholder or something, right? So I think for the placeholder we can actually do that. Yeah, we didn't pass the placeholder inside just yet. Okay, we'll get to that. But right now, let us quickly copy and paste this. Copy and paste so that it becomes 3 at least. And then the first one becomes what? The first one is basically going to be email again, and then name and name. Alright. Then over here we can, so over here is what? Password, and then password, right? Now that we have these ones here, for the password we want to set the type to be what? Password in general, right? Alright, so basically we have the password being set for how we want it to be, right? And then we've been able to pass in the errors and the register, the required and everything, right? Now the next thing we want to do is we want to be able to set up the footer content too as well. So for the footer content, we are going to have to calm down here and then say const footer content, right? So for the footer content here, I would say I'll create a div, and then inside this div I'll pass in a class name, pass in a few class names, right? And I'll say this is going to be display flex code, and then I'll give it a gap of 4, and I'll say nt3, right? Then I'll pass in one HR here, pass in one nice HR. Then under, I'll take the button that we had created. I remember we created a button. Where's the button? It has to be right around here. It has to be this button, basically. So, okay. Yeah, alright. Then we would say that this button inside the footer should be, first of all, it's outline, right? Should be outline, and then let's start seeing what is going on. Let's pass in the footer. Good. So you should see that the footer content is being passed on, and then we see that the label should be continue. See that the label should be continue with Google, right? Continue with Google. Continue with Google, and then we want to say what? We want to give it an icon, right? So for the icon, we want to pass in what? FC Google. Want to pass in FC Google. Oh, FC Google should have been able to import itself, but since it's not coming, I guess we have to take it from the React icons ourselves. So we just import FC Google from React icons FC, React icons FC. Then we have to import AI field GitHub too as well. So import AI field GitHub. Then we import that from React icons too as well. Then AI. Good. So for that matter, bring it back up. You can see continue with Google. Nicely written, nicely done. Then what we can do is we can pass in an empty on click. So because we've not started setting up those things yet. So you can just set it up to be empty. Then we just copy this and then paste this here, right? Once it's pasted, we just change this and make it what? GitHub. And then change this to what? AI field GitHub, right? Okay. Then after we save, the changes should appear. So I couldn't resolve the imports. Okay, that is not. Okay. You have to refresh. Okay. It's AI field GitHub. Okay, looks like we're having some spelling issues. Okay, now that we've been able to add it, let us just copy this and then put it at the right spot where it belongs. Okay. Okay, so it's here. It's here, nicely done, as we expected. Nicely done. If we go back and check the outline, we remove the border. I don't even think we wrote the border well, but it's all good. It's working as we expected to. So I'll just refresh quickly. And yes, it's working as we expected to. Right, so now the only thing that is left is the placeholders that would show. Okay, that's the only thing that is left. But before we go into that, one more thing. We need to be able to work on already have an account and log in. So under we need to go to the register modal here, and then under here we create a new div, and then this div is basically going to have a few class names, and that is going to be text neutral 500, text neutral 500, then text center, then we have MT4, then font light, and then once we have that working, we want to come again and create another div, and then okay, this div already has, so like just say display flex, right? And then we say flex row, and then ITC, item center, then justify center as well, and then we say gap 2, right? specify these things. Then inside we want to have two divs inside, right? We want to have two divs inside. So we want to have the first div saying already have an account, right? Already have an account. Then if you don't, inside here, right? Inside, what we can do is we can basically write login, just a simple login here, right? And then we can pass in on click, and then the on click could be register modal.onClose, so that it just closes it. And then we can just add a few class names to make it look a little, give it that character it needs. So neutral text, neutral 500, then cursor pointer, then hover underline. Okay, now you can see that when we hover on top of this, it gives us whatever we specified before in there. Alright. Okay, so let's quickly work on these ones. So when we go inside our input here, you realize that we have these ones here called labels, right? So I guess they are the only ones that we've not added. So we just have to add label, and then we say what this is email, right? This is an email label, and then we can copy this one over. So we can say that this is what the name label, and I don't think we have. I think instead of label, I went to write name instead. Let me see. I think that was the mistake that we made actually. So I just have to clean this and then move this one up like this. So just copy this, paste it here, paste this one to here. So I'll just say password. So password, and then what else? This is name. Right. So you can see if let's say I put in certain details here, I put in another detail. Okay. Something is a little strange going on. There's something a little strange going on here. This has to be negative. So okay. Then I pass in this, and then I pass in something, right? So you can see something went wrong. Now, in case I leave one field, you see that we are getting an error. If I refresh this whole thing, and we click on this, and I click without typing anything, you realize that we show all these errors. So this is basically it. You have been able to successfully construct your authentication UI. In the next one, we'll start working with the database and all these other things that come with it. Thank you very much for watching the first part. See you in the next one. Bye.